Welcome to this week's review on the Modern Day Trader channel. It was a quiet week, only one trade taken, one loss on USD JPY. That was a partial loss. And yeah, again, a quiet week. NFP was this week. The market does tend to be a bit cautious, I guess, as we wait for that key sort of data out of the US. That typically does inform how the rest of the month plays out. At least I saw that from observing over October. So yeah, we got a lot of movement post that labor data. And I think that was defining for certain pairs and structures and the dollar index as well. But yeah, if you want to see a forecast on that, yeah, you can check out my weekly forecast on TradingView, which will be up Monday morning. But diving into this week's advanced alpha view, because despite a lack of trades, I was still forecasting pretty consistently throughout the week, identifying opportunities, missing others. So still a lot of activity, but obviously not a lot of trades taken. So some things I did well this week. The entry I executed on wasn't perfect, but still quite clean and in line with the plan. And so it just required me to, it was a re-entry opportunity actually, because I'd missed the first entry. But then obviously I was still just quite engaged and was able to identify the re-entry, which was about 30 or so minutes after the initial entry, and got in on that. And then, yeah, I think while holding that position, managed to stay neutral, even though initially I was a bit fearful of the outcome of that. I wasn't too confident in the position. And it did ultimately result in a loss, but I was able to forecast multiple sort of potential re-entries in the event of stops being triggered. So yeah, I was quite proactive in that sense, which is something that's normally only done for scale-ins. And this was the first time, at least with this plan, where I was able to do it with, you know, a potential re-entry after stops, yeah, were triggered. And so, yeah, just moving on to some things that I didn't do well this week. Yeah, I didn't execute on that first opportunity, obviously because the entry was a re-entry, and that sort of presented itself shortly after the market open. And that was just due to a bit of volume at the open. It would have been a large stop. Funnily enough, the entry I took was a larger stop than this initial stop. And so, you know, the initial entry would have resulted in a tighter stop loss. And then, yeah, on a different day, left the trading station while waiting for entry confirmation. So I have got my high time frame confirmation, got the trade, met my trade parameters, and I was literally just waiting for 15-minute closes to confirm the entry. And then could have stayed at the desk, but, you know, had the choice to go attend some training. And yeah, was conscious that if I leave the desk, then I may miss the trade. And look, it wasn't the greatest trade, which is why I think I made the decision in the moment. But at the end of the day, that resulted in a missed trade because I did receive entry confirmation that time that I was away from the desk. And that trade would have resulted in a loss, a full loss. But I think regardless, on a different day, it would have been a profitable position. So this time around, that decision ended up working in my favor. But yeah, I think there's a lot more profit that could be left on the table as a result of that. So yeah, that wasn't great. And then Mr. Trade on GJ due to protraction completing before kill zone open. Yeah, this was very similar to, you know, not executing on that first opportunity. Another trade sort of presented itself later on in the week where price completed that protraction counter to my bias before the kill zone open. And with the majority of my trades, that normally occurs after the kill zone open, because that's when we get the volume that defines the protraction. But in rare occasions, or on rare occasions, we do complete that protraction before kill zone open. And I think I've just become aware this week that I'm uncomfortable and unfamiliar, I guess, with taking those kinds of entries. And so, yeah, that resulted in a mistrade. There were some other factors at play there, which I'll cover in my live backtesting session on Wednesday. But yeah, that was something that I just took note of. And so what did I learn from the things I did well and the mistakes I made? Yeah, kind of just learned that it's okay to miss positions if I'm not willing to accept the associated risk with that position, even if, you know, in hindsight, it's a win. Because yeah, at the end of the day, if the trade meets the plan, you know, part of that is still deciding whether this is a trade that you want to risk capital on, or, you know, if this is a trade that you're willing to just let go of. And you are within your right to decide that you don't have a good feeling about this. You're going to take it off, or for whatever reason, you may not be able to manage it properly because you'll be stepping into a meeting the whole day or whatever it is. But I think it's just being conscious of when, or at least when you deciding to not take a trade and it meets the plan, and what the outcomes are after that. Because if you're finding that you are deciding not to execute on a lot of positions that end up resulting in wins, then there's something to be investigated there. But if it's an anomaly that something plays out and, you know, you just don't execute it on that odd trade, then I think it's fine. It shouldn't distort your data over a long run, over the long term or long run. And then, yeah, also that entries can be executed at or shortly after kill zone open, which is, I think, a part of my plan I didn't expect a tweak to come from. But yeah, here we are learning things, which is cool. What can I do better next time? Yeah, performing my kill zone forecast on time, 30 minutes before market open. It's kind of a reoccurring thing, and something that, yeah, I'm constantly just paying attention to. Never leaving the trading station if parameters have been met and I'm waiting for entry confirmation. We've discussed why, but I think that's a key sort of action or actionable step. And then, yeah, executing the trade if it meets the plan, despite my hesitancy due to lack of experience with certain setups. So, yeah, I think just going back to what I'd said before around being okay to miss a position if you're not willing to accept the associated risk, that statement still stands. This current one is almost speaking to the trades that I missed in the week, where I recognize that I hesitated and I didn't execute on those, but not because, you know, I saw that they ticked all the boxes and, you know, I just chose not to. I think just because of how early they formed, I didn't even go through the process of acknowledging the setup as a valid setup that I can execute, and I'm consciously choosing not to. I just waited for further confirmation when there was no reason to wait any further. So I think that's the difference between those 2 points. And so that's almost the I guess the underlying or where the first sort of 1% tweak for this week comes in. The one most important thing I can work on improving this week, and that's executing positions which complete protracting before kill zone open. That's not to say I'm going to go hunting for these positions, but I think it's just to be more aware of if a very clear setup does form that completes protracting counter to or prior to the kill zone open, then I need to be more aggressive in executing on those and not let fear sort of dominate that sort of decision-making process. And then the second tweak, the one most important thing I should continue doing this week, is actively managing trades by forecasting scale and re-entry opportunities, which, just as a result of that one USD JPY position this week, where I did that quite well, and just recognizing the value in that. Remember, guys, consistency is the choice you make when you start doing the things you know you should be doing day in and day out.